which represented online intermediary in the Shreya Singhal case. He was also a part of the petitioners who has fought the case of Sabrimala woman issue. With no further ado, I leave the stage with my moderator, Priyanshi Sharma, and she'll take the session forward. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I welcome you, sir, on behalf of the our legal aid cell with Mitra, and we are very eager to start to know your opinions on the issue, sir.
Should I proceed?
Yes, sir, as per your convenience, sir.
Okay, so I'll start. So I'm just trying to reduce the monologue format as much as possible. So I'll give a brief introduction as to the order of the explain the broad issues at play, and I leave it to the members of the audience to probe me further and ask me questions which occur to them. And if there are any related aspects, I'm happy to answer those questions. Request would be that given the specific subject of the discussion here, kindly keep your questions as relevant as possible to the theme. So only a few ago, I think Nirma Law University had actually conducted a panel discussion of sorts on the jurisdictional issues of the competition regulators. And the relevance of that particular discussion to the topic at hand is manifest because I think among the issues that the Competition Commission seems to have discussed, order of 24th of March, is the question of sectoral regulation, because that seems to be one of the defenses that has been raised by WhatsApp and Facebook to basically say that issues relating to their privacy policy were already the subject of several writ petitions before high courts, and the matter was sub judice. The Competition Commission must perhaps desist from exercising the Competition Act of 2000. That seems to be the tone and tenor of one of the defenses that was taken by WhatsApp and Facebook. Now, let me first give the broad and then proceed to address each of the defenses that WhatsApp and Facebook have raised. And for the purposes of this discussion, while they may be distinct legal entities offering different services with different, let's say, I don't mind treating them as a single economic unit. That is possible as well. Firstly, as you're aware, the information, not the information taken by the Competition Commission, in light of news reports which reflected the updated policy of WhatsApp to connect, so to speak, the being offered under the umbrella of WhatsApp and the services that were being offered under the umbrella of Facebook. And since the integration of these two services did not provide for an opt-out policy previously available to users in the 2016 and the 2019 policies, it obviously triggered a certain amount of furor and outrage as to how the consent of use for granted. And those who were perhaps users of WhatsApp but not users of Facebook were also forced to be put in a spot because their personal information, personal data, and the user data, so to speak, for other operations and other opportunities. So this seems to have been the trigger for exercise of jurisdiction and assumption of jurisdiction by the Competition Commission. And the Commission obviously has to ask itself before it enters the realm of abuse of dominance, whether first of all the party against whom abuse is dominance or not. And since previous orders of this particular commission in Harshita Chawla as well as in Vinod Gupta, specifically where the Competition Commissioner is indeed a dominant player in the realm of over-the-top messaging services which are provided through smartphones, it did not deem it fit or necessary to again enter that particular angle. Therefore, the first limb of Section 4, meaning thereby whether an entity is in a position of dominance, is answered in the affirmative, subsequent to which of whether the policy violates any prescriptions under Section 4, and they come to the conclusion that compared to the previous policies where there was an opt-out, no opt-out was provided under the 2021 policy, coupled with the fact that there was no specificity in the manner in which the information was sought to be used, and the information would be put to use by either WhatsApp or Facebook or other entities which are related to Facebook or with whom they had contacted certain services. These were aspects that Commission to come to the conclusion that in light of lack of specificity in terms of the purpose for which the information was being collected and the absence of any option for exercise of consent by the users, whether or not they were users of Facebook apart from being users of WhatsApp, clearly it constituted, at least at a prima facie basis or on a prima facie basis, an abuse of dominant position. This seems to be the tone and tenor of it. Now, among the defenses that were used by WhatsApp, one was, of course, the defense that any violation of expectations of privacy must necessarily be dealt with under, according to them, the specific legislation, which is the Information Technology Act of 2000. And since that issue, according to them, is already pending before several courts, constitutional courts of the country, the Competition Commission must exercise restraint, keeping with the judgment of the Supreme Court in the Bharti Airtel, effectively commenting on the jurisdictional committee between TRAI and CCI. This is exactly why the discussion which was held by the becomes very, very relevant, because just because two different entities or two different original market regulators, so to speak, are involved in it doesn't necessarily give rise to a specter of conflict of jurisdiction, because jurisdiction is a mixed question of fact and law, but specifically a question which has a tone and tenor to it. In the language of Order 7, Rule 10 of the CPC, as laid down by the Supreme Court, you have to treat the exercise of jurisdiction or the present fact, which means you have to ask yourself if upon the reading of the legislation that cloaks a particular body or a tribunal with a certain and a comparison with the facts of a given case, do the facts on the face of it attract the jurisdiction of that particular tribunal or organization? That's the basic question. And if that is the case, if the transaction attracts two different tribunals or two different bodies, how do you then deal with that particular question is the second question. You have to look at each legislation on its own merits. So merely because TRAI has a certain specific sectoral connotation to it, and perhaps makes it possible for the jurisdiction, because the TRAI has greater jurisdiction over the telecom market, that doesn't necessarily mean that the same approach has to apply to every other regulator. Okay, because then you have to ask yourself, under the Information Technology Act is the same as the position under the TRAI Act. Okay. Similarly, whether the position under, let's say, any IP legislation is the same as the position under the TRAI Act, because I'm sure that there is also an ongoing dispute with respect to the jurisdictional metes and bounds of IP regulators such as the Patents Office and the Competition Commission in the context of jurisdiction under compulsory licensing provisions of, let's say, Chapter 16 of the Patents Act or under Section 4 of the Competition Act. So the presence of two different bodies lead to the conclusion of conflict of jurisdiction, unless and until, on the face of it, a legislation specifically ousts the jurisdiction of at least one of the regulators. So that the Information Technology Act were to say that insofar as any and every issue which relates to or emanates from the violation or infraction or infringement of these provisions, a body under this particular act shall have the sole jurisdiction, and the jurisdiction of civil courts as well as any other body is ousted, that is precisely when you can come to the conclusion that the Competition Commission has no jurisdiction. Otherwise, the typical argument of general versus specific does not apply, and there's a good reason for it. Because you see, let's say a freshman's approach could be Information Technology Act is the more specific legislation and the Competition Act is the more general legislation. So let's say that the specific prevails the argument for a very different reason, because Information Technology Act predominantly looks at transactions undertaken over a certain medium, of those transactions under the law, the limits of those transactions in terms of exercise of free speech, and the restrictions placed on it under various limbs of Article 19. Whereas Competition Commission, if you read Section 18 of the Competition Act, is vested with more specific powers with respect to the conduct of a particular entity as a business entity in a. Insofar as market is concerned, the Competition Commission is specific. Insofar as IT related conduct in terms of certain transactions and limitations on those transactions, which are not related to market behavior, IT Act is specific. Okay. So both these legislations are specific in their own respective domains. So there is no question of conflict, overlap, or intersection of jurisdiction between the IT Act and the Competition Act. Each is specific insofar as its own specific and individual and respective mandates are concerned. So therefore, the specific really has no business as far as this particular transaction is concerned. Second, if you look at the nature of the Competition Act and let's say all the documents surrounding its, the Raghavan Committee report, and then you have one brilliant report by the Planning Commission, the predecessor to the Niti Aayog, of course, which specifically says that insofar as market conduct is concerned and access to options to the consumers are concerned, the Competition Commission is the primary legislation, and the Competition Commission is the first and primary market regulator, notwithstanding the. In fact, the Competition Commission's sector agnostic nature is an intended feature. It is meant to be that way so that it has, as opposed to having to set up sectoral regulators in each sector, you must at least have one super regulator who has the ability to look at these issues in a more holistic fashion. And since the capable of having experts from individual sectors to advise it during the course of a certain sector-specific proceedings, there is no reason to assume that apart from the question of, let's say, legislative competence or the capacity or not, it has both legislative competence as well as subject matter competence. And only in situations where a legislation says, thus far and no further, and the Competition Act shall have no business here, only then that specific legislation shall have jurisdiction. So these are certain very specific or let's say nuanced aspects. In my opinion, these are not even path-breaking or let's say rocket science, and it's fairly clear that if you read sections 60, 61, and 62 of the Competition Act, it more or less decides the tone and tenor of the tango between the Competition Act and other legislations. If there is a conflict between legislations, one being the Competition Act and the other being any other legislation, then the Competition Act shall effectively prevail. But if in the two legislations, then both legislations can act simultaneously, which is precisely why we take the position that insofar as the Patents Act and the Competition Act are concerned, both can act together. But if it's the TRI Act and the Competition Act, perhaps the TRI Act prevails over the Competition Act specifically because of its express provisions. So this is one aspect which I think is an extremely important takeaway, because I suspect that this kind of a question would feature in your mood sectoral conflicts and regulatory conflicts and jurisdictional conflicts. And as far as the second issue is concerned, I think the Competition Commission's order, I won't call it path breaking, to the extent that the lack of specificity in the manner in which information relating to users is sought to be used by a dominant entity as an example of abuse of dominance, principally because apart from not providing an opt-out option, even if there is an opt-out option, and even if it were to, how do you choose to use that information is something that the provider of the information does not have access to. He has no idea what he's signing up for. So all kind of situation where a dominant player says, either you take it or leave it, and I'm not even going to tell you the specific purposes for this, for which this particular information is going to be used, is use of dominance. This, I think, is fairly a new development, not because it requires an extension of the, let's say, the jurisprudence. It simply shows that information goods, notwithstanding its treatment as goods, cannot be treated at par with physical goods simply because tangible goods can be put to only specific uses, unless its uses are foreseeable in nature. But as far as intangible goods are concerned and information goods are concerned, since their value sometimes may only increase with time, and the uses that they can be put to are practically unforeseeable. Therefore, lack of specificity and lack of informed consent from the provider of that information, especially by a dominant entity, translates to abuse. I think are the high-level takeaways from the order. Let's see what it ultimately translates to after the investigation. But for now, I think the judgment holds water. Let's open the floor for questions. Let's see what questions you have.
Sir, I actually had a question. Yes,
Yeah,
sir, am I
please.
audible to you, sir? Yes.
Yeah, of course.
So don't you think in the absence of a sound data protection law, we are just doing a catch-up role through the means of CCI? If we had a sound data protection law, I don't think so this question would have come to this perspective, because when you talk about the idea of privacy policy of WhatsApp, you see this perspective of take it or leave it. And we come to realize this idea of take it or leave it is not applicable in European Union. But when you come to India, they have come up with this stringent idea of take it or leave it. So do you think if we had a sound data protection law, we do not have to go to the stage where CCI has to intervene?
So the data privacy protection bill that is in the works and has gone to the expert committee, and which is the product of the Sri Krishna committee report. For a moment, let's play a hypothetical scenario here and assume for a moment that at the time of the passing of the order as on 24th of March 2021, bill had become an act, okay? And even post that, assume for a moment that WhatsApp had continued to stand and by this particular policy. There is a possibility that someone could have said, now you have access to remedies under that particular act. Why do you have to come to the Competition Act? The question that I was trying to address, that infraction of that particular legislation would be based on infraction of privacy that is expected of any entity which acts principle within the meaning of that bill, which enjoys a certain fiduciary duty. So if you look at that particular bill, what does it say? Assume for a moment Ashit Srivastava runs a particular entity collecting information for any kind of messaging service, okay? And your entity, assume for a moment, is not a dominant entity in the market at all, okay? And you're a basic startup, okay? That as part of your terms and conditions and your privacy policy, you're basically asking us to sign, and obviously none of your users would have the ability to negotiate with you. It's again, it's a standard form and leave it, right? Now, even if you were not a dominant entity, the fact that information is being shared with you with a certain expectation of trust, particular information from any kind of breach, and you will take the necessary safeguards to prevent any breach of that information, puts you in the status of what the Sri Krishna committee calls, and therefore you become a fiduciary of sorts. This relationship becomes a fiduciary of sorts. So even by contract, if you basically say, I will not do this, I will not do, and I have agreed to those terms and conditions and had access to your application, over and above those terms and conditions, the data protection privacy bill, so to speak, will say notwithstanding whatever you may have said in your contract, the fact that you're a data principal, these are the obligations that entail and that come with it, okay? This is applicable regardless of your dominant position, okay? But what is the sum and substance of the recognition of a dominant position? Roughly speaking, if I were to give it a crude visual imagery, translates to the tallest and the strongest person in a room whose movement will affect everybody else, others' movement. That is the meaning of a dominant player, okay? You're so powerful in the market that the market forces, so to speak, don't affect you, but a single move to affect the market, okay? Now, the data protection bill has nothing to do with your status as a dominant player, and the Competition Act recognizes the complications of a dominant player, okay? So what I'm trying to say is the considerations are very different. So even if there were provisions to protect the privacy, the fact that you as a dominant player have enhanced obligations you cannot evade it citing the existence of other legislations. Okay, the very purpose is to say not all players are equal. Some players are unequal by the factum of the position that they enjoy in the market, and therefore certain enhanced obligations. And those enhanced obligations are captured in Section 4 of the Competition Act. Okay. So the same violation by a dominant player and a non-dominant player will have presumption under Section 4. Okay. And therefore, the presence of any other legislation that could have helped you gone after WhatsApp for violation of privacy does not address the question of its conduct as a dominant player. Okay. That's precisely why you have to understand what is the jurisprudence behind recognition of a dominant player's, let's say, restrictions. Okay. And specifically, if you look at Section 4, I think subsection 2, clause C, it extends to any and every business practice of a dominant. Okay. So any practice of yours which has a tendency to impact, can somebody just share Section 4 of the Competition Act? Because I just want to show one thing relevant to the specific question here. Let me just open it. Now, if you take a look at Section 4 of the Competition Act, okay, that no enterprise shall abuse its dominant position. And 4C, as I said, indulges in practice or practices resulting in market denial. Now, what you should consider doing is, now read the opening lines of Section 4.2. While Section 3 requires you to show what is known as an appreciable on competition, appreciable adverse effect on competition, AAEC, 4.2 proceeds on the axiomatic position that if you do anything from 4.2A to 4.2E as a dominant entity, there shall be an abuse of the dominant position. Therefore, there is a legislative irrebuttable presumption that if you indulge in any of these activities, it shall amount to abuse of dominant position, and there is no defense to it. Okay. Your only option is to show and say that you don't indulge in those activities, but you don't have the luxury of saying, while I have indulged in these activities and while I am a dominant player, it does not amount to abuse of my position. That room is not allowed. Okay. So understand why Section 4.2 is such an important thing, because perhaps it even recognizes that there is a possibility in a cartel-like situation, certain entities may have come together, which could lead to market efficiency. And that's precisely why it is it's a rebuttable presumption under Section 3. 2 is concerned, the moment you are a dominant player and you indulge in any of these prescribed activities, there is no room or defense to say that it does not amount to abuse. Satisfied, it's an irrebuttable presumption. Okay. So understand this, and therefore do not conflate this with the existence of any other legislation. There may be hundreds of legislations that protect, let's say, violation of intermediary guidelines, that protect, let's say, sharing of information. But the aspect of, let's say, abuse of dominance is exclusively provided for under the competition. Okay. Next.
Good evening, sir. I'm Rishabh Gupta. Sir, am I audible?
Yes. Yeah, you're
sir,
audible.
Sir, although the CCI, although the Competition Commission has caused the DG to investigate into this matter, but don't you think that, sir, it has failed to take interim measures under Section 33 of the Act, which says about the power of interim relief, such as an, sir, injunction on the operation of 2021 update until the final decision is taken, since serious and irreparable harm may cause because of the said practices. Sir.
Correct. I certainly agree with you, because this is a particular activity, or let's say this information, or rather this order has been passed without a third party information. Okay. This is obviously moto cognizance, and therefore I would have certainly expected the Competition Commission to pass interim orders. And I think it's a fantastic question, because you see, taken the issue so seriously that based on news reports, it has come to the conclusion that there's a prima facie abuse of dominance, then it should have taken the matter to its logical conclusion and put a hold on the policy of 2021 pending the investigation. You're right. I certainly agree with you. That is something that the commission could have done.
Good evening, sir. My name is Abhyuday.
Yes.
Sir,
Yes.
whatever research I have done till now, I am still not clear of what is the intention behind the Competition Commission of India of taking so much cognizance of this matter. Whether it was to fill the lacuna which was there in the Indian legislation, Indian law, that there is no data protection laws, or it was done in the lines of foreign judgments like European Commission and the German competition laws, where they have taken cognizance in this matter.
So, Abhyuday, for a moment, I'll try to explain this issue in a slightly different fashion to understand this. Consent and protection of data post giving of consent are two different things. Okay. Assume for a moment 2021 policy had a specific provision for consent. Okay. Which means you have the opt-out. Okay. And after to opt in, and you have given information, or you have given your consent to the particular information to be used. When that information specific use, then it becomes a question of protection of the particular data in circumstances which I have no knowledge of. Okay. Competition Commission addresses is not protection of data that is taken, but the question of consent for use of data. Okay. So you and then put it to some kind of use where I have zero understanding of where it is going. That is one aspect of data protection. But the first question that the Competition Commission is asking is, give me the option of saying no to all these subsequent uses. Okay. So understand this and try to separate it from the question of data protection. Protection of data could also mean that you have given somebody the right to use your data and to keep your data. They may have failed to provide adequate safeguards to keep that particular data safe. That is strictly a question of data protection. Okay. But here it is more a question of data use. It's not a question of data protection, which means you're processing the data in order for it to be put to subsequent uses. This is not a question of protection. You look at, that's why I would suggest you please read the Sri Krishna Committee report. There's a specific chapter 6 under, I think it starts at page number 82 of data processing. Okay. So when you choose to access my data, refine it in a certain fashion and provide that in a certain usable, that is very different from you keeping my data safe in, let's say, a storage unit, so that no third party has access to the particular information. So don't confuse the needed to effectively use my data for a certain purpose from the plain and simple question of data protection. These are two different aspects. Okay. They may be related to a significantly the same. The overlap doesn't mean that there is a complete overlap. So assume for a moment that I say that I am going to give this information to Facebook for electoral inputs or electoral analysis. Now, as a user, you're being told that it's being given to Facebook. You're also being told what is that specific Facebook is going to use it. Okay. After that, if there is a breach of that particular data and your personal information is put out in public domain, that is strictly privacy. However, when he doesn't even ask your permission before it is being handed over to Facebook, then that's a question of data consent or consent for use of the particular data, if strictly speaking. Okay. So these are two different aspects. I hope I have tried to clarify the confusion in your head. If it hasn't, I would suggest that you read the Sri Krishna Committee to help you understand the point better. Okay. Next.
Good evening, sir. This is Ankit Srivastava this side. Sir, my only question is, don't you think that CCI is 4 years too late to start a probe against WhatsApp? They could have done the same in the Vinod Kumar Gupta case itself, when the allegation was there from the side of the informant with respect to the after-merger privacy policy.
See, there, if you remember, if you read the judgment, Vinod Gupta case on the basis that an undertaking was given, that as and when there is an update, they will think about it. And you have to understand that the Competition Commission has the power, but not quia timid action. Suo motu action would mean that if there is an issue that has arisen, then you don't wait for any member of the public or any aggrieved party to approach you and knock your doors for some kind of a relief. But quia timid action would mean that taking an action in the anticipation of a certain conduct. Okay, so the Competition Commission does not have the power to initiate quia timid action unless and until there is some concrete basis. Okay, so until the updated policy of 2021, February 2021, the policies that were in place were of 16, and neither of these policies gave rise to a certain cause of action within the meaning of Section 4 of the Competition Act. So surely you don't expect the Competition Commission to anticipate a certain action or a certain investigation without the actual policy coming into force. The merger of the two entities, if it had resulted in removal of the opt-out options which were present in 16 and 21 or 16 and 19, then I think your point would be right. But until February 2021, there is no change in the particular policy. Okay, so remember one thing, it's not necessarily an adversarial body. Of course, it's a body which has the power to take suo motu action, but suo motu action and inquisitorial powers don't translate to the right to take anticipatory action. Okay, unless there is a credible basis. So that after the merger of, let's say, Facebook Messenger and WhatsApp Messenger, so to speak, if both these parties had issued any public statements to say that the opt-out option sometime in 2021 or in the coming years, at least if they had given an inkling that the privacy policy would be specifically affected in this particular manner, the future policy could have at least formed the basis for a suo motu action. But if such a policy comes about for the very first time in February 2021, and there are not enough statements in public domain that to necessarily be expected in 2021, how do you expect the Commission to anticipate and initiate an action which is preemptive in nature? That can't happen. Okay. After all, the Commission can't initiate a which before the business practice has come into play, or even before they have told the entire world that such a business practice would actually come into existence at so and so period. Okay, so these jurisdictional aspects work. I don't think the Competition Commission would have been justified or within its powers had it initiated these actions without a credible basis. In fact,
thank you, sir. Thank you.
For a Competition Commission in India to have initiated a suo motu action on the basis of news reports, that's a welcome change to a significant extent on these matters. Next.
Does anyone have any other question?
Sir, am I audible?
Yes, sir, please.
Yes, Abhinav, please go on.
Good evening, sir. Yes, sir. So, as far as very limited knowledge I have, Section 4 talks about the effect of any act of a dominant entity and how it abuses its dominance. Here, the privacy policy is yet to be implemented, and so they have just announced that there is a privacy policy, and the way CCI
no.
unless this aspect that
itself
they have taken.
Premise of your question itself is wrong, Abhinav. Please show me which portion of Section 4 says that you have to wait for the effect. Can you read out Section 4 and compare it with Section 3 and Abhinav, did you hear my question? Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So the point is, in fact, I answered your question partly in response to Ashit's question also. Just read Section 3. Section 4 doesn't wait for the effect to set in. It doesn't wait for the effect to arise. And it proceeds on the axiom it will be an abuse of dominance if such and such conditions are satisfied. What are those conditions? If there is an unfair or discriminatory condition, or if there is a limitation or restriction on production of goods or technical or scientific development. Where is the question of effect that arises within the meaning of Section 4? There is no reference to the need for an effect under Section 4. Effect is to be presumed. It proceeds on almost like, let's say, a preventive principle. That the moment you do this, I anticipate something negative on the market, and therefore you should not be allowed to do this. I don't need proof of any effect, or I don't even need proof of possibility or tendency or the likelihood of any effect. So that is flawed. It has no basis in the jurisprudence of Section 4.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Clarifying this.
Next. We have another 20 minutes, so please pack in as many questions as possible.
Does
Or am I
anyone
to
have?
assume that that is the end of the session?
So we can wait for 1 minute and let's see.
Yeah, please, no problem. Sure. Are there any questions in the chats that I have missed?
No, sir. I have been keeping check on the chats. By
Okay.
far, there are none.
Am I audible, sir? I have to ask another question.
Go ahead, Rishabh. Please go on.
Sir, the commission has defined market, the relevant market, as the market over the top messaging apps through the smartphone in India, as per the Harshita Chawla case. Sir,
Correct.
sir, on the same note, sir, I want to ask that, sir, WhatsApp and Facebook are abusing their dominant position in launching their payment app services. So, sir, how could we relate these two relevant markets?
No, but how do you say that they're abusing the dominant position by launching payment app services? Where is the abuse?
It is tentative, sir.
No. See, the question is, please understand the point. Even if, let's say, a dominant player chooses to enter a certain market, the entry of a dominant player in a new segment using its dominant position in one market to enter into another market doesn't translate to abuse ipso facto unless it is preventing the entry of others into that particular market. Okay? Or it adopts a certain practice during the course of such entry that forecloses the options of either the customer or other competitors in that particular market. So I'm sorry, it's just that I've been facing some of these questions and I find that these questions are too broad and non-specific. Remember one thing, and take this as a suggestion that's coming from someone who has spent about 12 years in the profession. When you try and create a problem statement, the boundary conditions of the problem statement must be as clear and as specific as possible so that we're able to understand what is that specific conduct that triggers the exercise of jurisdiction by a certain body. Okay, so merely because they enter a payment service using the clout that they have in the, let's say, in the social media market, that doesn't necessarily translate to abuse. Why should it translate to abuse? So merely because, let's say, Reliance Petrochemicals and Reliance Industries has a certain clout in one segment, which gives it the liquidity needed to undercut and subsidize its positions in other, let's say, markets, that doesn't necessarily translate to abuse. It can translate to abuse if it offers a certain predatory price. You will have to prove WhatsApp and Facebook have started a certain payment service, charging a certain fee which is predatory in nature because they can take a certain amount of market hit which other players cannot. And therefore, this amounts to an abuse of dominant position. At least you have to show which of the ingredients under Section 4 is satisfied. What is the prima facie basis for this particular argument? unless and until there is any such case to be made out, I'd say it's an extremely conjectural and speculative question. I'm sorry to say it may not have too much of a base. You'll have to build that question. Why don't you refine that question, think about it, and get back? Okay? I'll wait for you to come back with a better question. Don't worry. In the meantime, I'll take other questions.
Sir, there's a question in the chat box. Would you like me to read it out for
Yeah,
you?
I'm just reading. No, I'm just
Okay.
reading it. So it says, Ayush Singhal has sent a question. What is my opinion with regard to the WhatsApp contention of jurisdiction? I just said that. Ayush, I don't know if you were there at the beginning. I said this very, very specifically. I answered this question in detail in response to Ashit Srivastava's question on sectoral regulation. In fact, even in my own opening submissions, I said this, that there is no sectoral regulatory issue here. Because competition law and abuse of market is concerned, the Competition Commission is the exclusive sectoral regulator or market regulator. And infraction of IT Act gives rise to a different proceeding altogether, which has got nothing. So this is an issue that has been specifically addressed. And the exercise of suo motu jurisdiction by the CCI has got nothing to do with this. Or whether it was on the basis of information has no impact on the CCI's ability to take cognizance of an issue that falls exclusively within the jurisdiction of the Competition Commission. According to aspect of WhatsApp's conduct is squarely within the exclusive preserve of the Competition Commission. It has got nothing to do with violation of any other provision of the IT Act. I said all of this in my opening submissions. Since this is being recorded, please watch it after the session is over. Next. Rishabh, have you refined your question? Do you have a better question?
No, sir, I have got the point that you have discussed.
Okay, okay. Next. Your colleague Priyanshi has been after my life for several months to get me to talk to you guys. So this is the next 12 to 15 minutes.
Yes, please.
Thanks to her patience.
Yes, please. I have been after sir since last December 2020. If you have questions, please ask.
I was behind sir for 3 months when I was in National University Odisha. And I got a call last like in August itself that I'll be talking on August 10. Okay, yes sir, why not?
So just not to act pricey, it's just that I am someone who enjoys live audience more than webinars. Webinars are really an honest pain.
Yes sir, yes sir.
And
Yes.
Priyanshi unfortunately ended up contacting me at a time when, and I've just completed the book. Hopefully it should be out by June on the Constitution. So that's the reason for my unavailability
sir.
for these sessions. So let's see what happens. Yeah.
I really do not have a question per se, but I really might have a point of addition, which again I'm little skeptical to put forward right now. But yes, I want to put it forward because I have been pursuing this idea of data protection law, and I agree with the somewhere down the line there's overlapping between the two ideas of CCI and the data protection law.
Right.
In absence of a data protection law, we are moving to the idea of CCI. I totally agree with you upon that perspective. There is a legitimate fear in the mind of CCI because if the information goes with WhatsApp, that by default will go to the Facebook also. We cannot deny that fact, and we know that Facebook has this micro targeting advertisements through Facebook Pixel, and they will process the information and they will target us with advertisement and they will abuse the dominant position, which is again you have quite correctly told us. And by reading section 4 also, there is a legitimate fear, which I really agree with you upon that, sir. My only point of addition, which I really see, is that if there was a data protection authority right now in existence, the very prime question of dominant position, the very prime question of sharing of my data with WhatsApp or Facebook wouldn't have arisen. CCI would have been the other alternate body, the B team waiting for the failure of the A team. There is no A team, that's why we are moving to the B team right now. So if data protection authority was there in existence, it would have ensured that my data is not taken away by the Facebook without taking my consent per se. As per the bill of data protection, there is a provision for significant data fiduciary, which obliges any data fiduciary which has more than 5 million users in India to follow certain guidelines.
Right.
They have a data trust code,
Right.
they have a data protection, they have a data trust officer. So I personally feel data protection authority was A team. In absence of A team, we are going with B team, and B team is the CCI in this scenario, which I see from my perspective.
See, I'll tell you why I disagree and agree on two different counts. Okay. The issue of market effects.
Yes, sir.
Business entities' actions or conduct is not within the scope of either the IT Act or the Data Protection Act. Okay. The question is of market harm. And the question is of consumer harm and not privacy-based harm. Okay. So a question which is based on privacy-based harm would be squarely within the meaning of the data protection. Okay. But a question of market harm, even if there is a Data Protection Act, would be exclusively within the scope of the Competition Act. Okay. So to make is any expectation of privacy doesn't necessarily translate to a competitive concern. Okay. I completely agree with you on that front. Expectations of privacy necessarily translate to competitive concerns or market harm. However, an expectation of privacy from a dominant player in the market is something very different from an expectation of privacy from every intermediary or every data principal. Okay. So market harm is to be presumed in any sector the moment you assume that the person who is acting is a dominant player. Okay, let me phrase this question very differently. Does the Data Protection Act address the impact of a conduct of a dominant player with respect to data privacy? No, it does not. Data privacy is not from the perspective of dominance or non-dominance of a player in the Data Protection Act. It may have certain thresholds to define who is a data fiduciary or a data principal for that particular matter. It does not strike a distinction between dominant players and non-dominant players from the perspective of market harm. Okay. Now, your question perhaps can be tweaked slightly differently to agree with you, but not completely. What is it? If, let's say, the Data Protection Act had been around, perhaps the Competition Commission would have said, let it take care of it. Why should I worry? Okay. That is a question of propriety, not of lack of jurisdiction.
I agree.
Because you see, lack of jurisdiction or presence of jurisdiction is not based on the existence or absence of another legislation or another body, unless the other Competition Act has no business here.
Very good.
Right?
Yes, sir.
Now, if you have gone through the Data Protection Bill, you're aware that there is not a single provision that says we shall oust the jurisdiction of any other regulator or the Competition Commission as far as these acts are concerned. There is no such thing, correct? So therefore, the Competition Act would continue to be in place even after the Data Protection Bill comes into existence, correct? So in case of a conflict and a direct conflict, necessarily Competition Act must prevail unless and until there is a specific expression in the Data Protection Bill that says, notwithstanding whatever is contained in the Competition Act, this is an exception to an exception. Okay. So I agree with you to the extent of saying the Competition Commission would not have gone to the extent of taking so much cognizance if there had been another body. Okay. But I still stick to the position that the Competition Commission would have been 100% justified in assuming jurisdiction because it happens to be dealing with a dominant player of market harm, which is beyond the scope of the Data Protection Bill. Okay. I think that should be the end of it. I'm assuming there are no further questions. So, and Mr. Srivastava, should I call it a day?
Definitely. We appreciate you finding out time for us, and specifically in these times. These are desperate times, and there's no one family that I know that has not been affected by COVID-19 yet. And I thank you, sir. We are truly grateful that you found out time for us. and you kept my word, sir, and that means a lot to me.
No
And
problem. Thank you, and thanks for the patience with which you came after me.
thank you so much, sir. And from the behalf of the all DNLU family, our Vice Chancellor, sir, our Registrar, sir, our HOD, sir, our COE, sir, thank you, sir. Truly grateful, sir. Truly grateful.
Thank you. Thank you. All the best. Take care.
Deepak, sir, just one point of
Yeah.
request. One point of request. We would really, really love to have you more sessions from you in coming months. So we'll again be behind
Now,
you.
sir, we might have it in December, sir, maybe.
Yes.
I'm not you in any way, sir.
To be honest, I'm trying to reduce my exposure through webinars only for two reasons. Because I think it's getting a bit jaded. And secondly, I've captured my thoughts in writing for, let's say, for posterity more than these talks. However, this much I guarantee that after the lockdown, and as and when, let's say, physical becomes possible, I'm happy to personally come there, subject to situations being better, and deliver a lecture. Hopefully, between that and now, we should have more developments, which will give us more ammunition for discussion.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks a lot.